Yo, this is Ars Poetic and this is my preview of Modern Warfare 2, which is set to release on October 28th of 2022. In short, there's not much that's drastically new from the previous 2019 Modern Warfare release, though that's not necessarily a bad thing, as in my opinion, Modern Warfare 2019 did a lot of great things with the Call of Duty formula, and I ended up sinking a few hundred hours into the multiplayer. I've had my hands on the closed beta for a few days, and this video preview is my take on the game so far. First things first, while I've been messing around with the closed beta that I gained access through a pre-order bonus, anyone can try the game during the open beta, which is set to go live this Saturday on September 24th and run through Monday morning, September 26th. The game will be released on the current generation PS5, Xbox Series, consoles, and PC, as well as the previous generation PS4 and Xbox One platforms. There will be full cross-play across old and new systems, including this weekend for the beta. So even if you're only slightly interested, it's worth checking out if you have the time, even more so if you got a couple of buddies to team up with. Additionally, if you end up pre-ordering the game, you will get early access to play the campaign up to a week early, starting on October 20th. Before we get into the details on gameplay and my overall take, I want to talk about my experience and perspective on the franchise. Call of Duty as a whole is just another one of those franchises that doesn't really take too many risks in terms of its tried and true gameplay formula. So you have an idea of where I'm coming from. I myself stopped playing Call of Duty for several years after Black Ops 2. As the series evolved into a more fast-paced and over-the-top shooter, I lost interest as I preferred a more grounded experience that the first couple of Modern Warfare titles offered. I also enjoyed the single-player campaigns for the action-heavy blockbuster experiences they were. I naturally transitioned to the Battlefield franchise for my multiplayer shooter itch, as I found myself preferring the more wide-open areas, larger-scale battles, and environmental destructibility, which brought along a more dynamic gameplay scenario, as you had to adjust to the flow of combat based on the changing cover around you. I thought Call of Duty's design philosophy continued to lean too heavily on the focused map design that essentially relegated all maps to a 3-tunnel system, meaning you basically only had 3 unique routes to take no matter what map it was, which would then funnel you into these repeatable firefights. This type of map design is super popular and continues to be successful across many first and third person competitive team-based shooters. For me, Call of Duty felt more and more like a sequence of small and focused firefights, while Battlefield was more of that full-on warfare experience. Both of them have their own unique feel, and this is why I've come to appreciate both franchises for what they offer. On one hand, I enjoy the Battlefield experience of playing an objective and doing what I can to help my team win, even if that doesn't necessarily mean racking up a kill count, and instead playing more of a support role to my squad and team, keeping pressure on enemies or defending certain areas. On the other hand, I do enjoy going on Killstreaks and trying to best myself and others when it comes to surviving multiple back-to-back engagements in more tightly focused and predictable scenarios. Though I feel Call of Duty's player base is more lacking when it comes to team coordination, it is hard to knock the visceral and intense gunplay. Still, I do prefer objective-based modes in Call of Duty games because of that natural lack of cooperative play. Everyone in a Call of Duty match typically just wants to pull a Leroy Jenkins and take on everyone by themselves.
Alright, thumbs up. Ready, guys? Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Save him! Oh geez, stick to the plane!
Oh Jesus, let's go.
Stick to the plane, Shove! Stick to the plane!
Oh gee, oh fuck.
At least I have chicken.
Enter 2019, and the Modern Warfare reboot launched its open beta. Having skipped 6 mainline titles in the franchise at this point, I became intrigued by the developers' desire to go back to a more quote-unquote boots on the ground experience. After Warzone released a few months later in early 2020, I saw that more content and maps had also come out for Modern Warfare. I bit the bullet and purchased the game at that time. I then proceeded to play the game for over 400 hours, becoming one of my most played PlayStation titles right under Metal Gear Solid 5, Warframe, and GTA. I found a lot of enjoyment in teaming up with friends and working on unlocking new weapons, skins, and takedowns through each season of the Battle Pass. While I'm sure plenty of people aren't a fan of Battle Passes, it was something that I found kept the progression refreshed enough as I found some new things that I wanted to unlock in each season. I was not a fan of the old school prestige grind in older Call of Duty games, where you had to sacrifice everything you unlocked multiple times just to get fancier emblems. It was a fake progression system that I'm glad has since been phased out. Additionally, I enjoyed switching up game modes to keep the combat experience fresh, as we worked together across modes like Kill Confirm, Capture the Flag, Domination, or even Search and Destroy. While the maps and gunfights were only so big and dynamic when compared to a game like Battlefield, having all of these modes kept the gameplay loop fresh enough for me. The sound design and visuals go a long way in making the action satisfying to play. The return to a slightly slower and more tactical feel of gameplay was what I appreciated most in this title. Features like the ability to mount walls and ledges with your gun, peeking doors prior to breaching rooms, and blasting people in the face all felt right here. The weapon customization offered by the Gunsmith feature was also well implemented. While I dabbled in Warzone, I didn't stick with it too long, as the core game modes hit the right spots for me. In summary, Modern Warfare 2019 became the refresh I wanted in a Call of Duty game. I ended up skipping both Call of Duty Cold War and Vanguard, because those just didn't do it for me. I felt they strayed away from the sweet spot Modern Warfare was in, which is why I'm excited to dive into Modern Warfare 2. Now that you've got a sense of where I'm coming from, let's get into my take on Modern Warfare 2 thus far, what I would like to see more of, and why I'm looking forward to playing in the months to come. If you've played Modern Warfare 2019, you know what to expect. It's the same game with a fresh coat of paint. The core experience is the same, though there are some new changes that I feel add more fun. If you are on the current gen PS5, Xbox Series X, or a well-equipped PC, you are in for a treat. The visuals are upgraded here to take advantage of the power these systems can now offer. I highly recommend turning on the AMD Fidelity FX Contrast Adaptive Sharpening. By turning this feature on and turning it up all the way, it will increase the visual fidelity and frame rate performance. This works by sharpening and upscaling details that can be lost to TAA, or temporal anti-aliasing, which is a post-processing effect that works to eliminate jagged edges made by pixels. If you're playing on PS5, you get to enjoy the Dualsense features with a dynamic rumble and haptic trigger feedback. While some of you may not be interested, especially if you're the type to turn rumble off, I highly recommend leaving these features on and trying them out at least. I initially turned off the dynamic triggers as I felt it to be a little overwhelming, but I shortly went back to compare the differences with the effects on and off, and I ended up loving it. I find it to be a little extra fun and engaging to have the triggers bounce back as they do when you're letting off a bunch of rounds from your gun. Additionally, as you squeeze the aim trigger, you will hit a tension wall halfway through that lines up when you actually go into ADS. I found this to be useful as a way to just lightly tap the trigger and get right into aiming down the sights. I tried the middle option of enabling weapon fire threshold only, and I couldn't figure out the difference here, as it seemingly just removed all of the trigger feedback. I don't know if this is a bug, so I ended up just leaving the trigger feedback on all the way. The rumble itself is also very dynamic, as even switching weapons allows you to feel the different weight of your guns as you switch to and grip them. I'm a fan of these controller gimmicks, and I think they did a good job here with the DualSense features. You'll probably either hate it or love it, but I do recommend trying these features out for a couple rounds at least. If you like how they feel but think they are too strong, remember that you can change the intensity of both the rumble and trigger effects in the PS5 system settings. As mentioned, the core gameplay is your standard Call of Duty experience with a very fast time to kill, snappy and satisfying aiming system, and a straightforward FPS control scheme. This entry does feel like a solid iteration, implementing what they've learned and have seen work well over the past several titles in the series. One core difference here, even from the previous Modern Warfare 2019, is that the ability to slide cancel has been removed, or at least nerfed. You can still slide, of course, but you just can't slide cancel the way you could before. I think the removal of this ability was a great idea, and I'll explain why in a sec. For those that don't know, slide canceling is essentially an exploit that became part of the gameplay's meta in previous titles. Basically how it works is that you start to slide and then immediately cancel this slide, which ends up in you doing sort of a bob and weave movement. This is essentially an exploit because while you do this, you use the momentum of the slide to move forward and can sprint indefinitely because it resets your sprint as well. Not only that, but you can aim down your sights much faster from a slide cancel than a normal sprint. I don't know when it started, but because it was so effective, so many players adopted this mechanic as a way to zoom around the map and change the pacing of the game. This whole mess is why I'm very glad to see that they've removed this ability from the game. From what I can gather, sliding is a feature initially implemented to allow players to slide into cover and get themselves out of sticky situations, but it was not intended to be used as a way to just bounce around the map like a cracked out 5-year-old. They brought back the ability to perform what is known as a dolphin dive. I don't know what was the last game in the franchise to have this, but I believe they first implemented it way back in Black Ops 1. As far as I know, there's no real exploit here, but rather it's just another fun mechanic you can use to jump out of a sticky situation and into some cover. Another feature they added, which I believe is completely new to the franchise, is the ability to wall hang and shoot from ledges. You could already do this from a ladder back in Modern Warfare 2019, but now you can just grab onto a variety of ledges and pop up to let off a few rounds with your pistol, which is awesome. Perks are back, which is to be expected. These work a little differently here in that when building up a perk package, you get 2 base perks that are active all of the time, and then you get 1 bonus perk and 1 ultimate perk that are inactive at the start of a match and instead activate over time. Apparently, the bonus perk is timed to activate at 4 minutes into a match, while the ultimate perk is set to go off after 8 minutes. These timers will be reduced based on the amount of points you earn within that match. So if you're putting in work and racking up those points, you can end up activating both the bonus and ultimate perk much sooner. I'm sure this works to create a more dynamic tension towards the end of the match as everyone starts to become more powerful later on. Let me know what you think about this change to the perk system in the comments. Killstreaks are a staple of the CoD franchise, and there's not much new here. Pick your choice of 3 killstreaks, each unlocking after a set amount of kills, though also returning here is the option to switch over to the score streak system. When it comes to your gear, you get your choice of a tactical and lethal item, as well as 1 field upgrade. The tactical and lethal options are your standard fare of throwables and deployables like flashbangs, smoke grenades, sticky grenades, and proximity mines. There are a couple of new ones, including the shock stick, which stuns enemies into holding down their triggers and unloading their weapons without the ability to aim down sights. You can move while shocked, and so you might end up with the opportunity to still gun down someone if you can line them up in front of you. But if you time it right, you can get your opponents to unload their weapons so you can strike while they're empty and reloading. It's a tricky one for sure, as you'll have to be careful not to shock yourself, and also not just run in front of a shocked enemy who will unload their weapon into your chest. Field upgrades are back as well, which are upgrades that become activated and usable throughout a match, much like bonus and ultimate perks. I'm unsure at this time if they also unlock faster based on points, or if it is strictly time-based. Most of these are returning from previous games, but there's a new one that I'm a fan of, which is in the inflatable decoy. These are just like the decoys you can get in Metal Gear Solid 5. These guys can pop up and distract enemies automatically based on proximity, or you can preemptively activate them and use them as bait. As far as the weapons go, we were fairly limited on our options during the first waves of the beta. There was a notable lack of handguns, which I certainly hope they add to. I'm one of those guys that will just run around with a pistol sometimes, or at the very least switch to one for CQC, and so I love having a range of handguns to use in shooters. The main draw here, aside from what the actual weapons are in the game, are the customization options, aka the Gunsmith 2.0. Here you get your choice of 5 weapon upgrades with their own pros and cons, ranging from options like optics, magazines, and grips, to stocks and ammunition type. The extra layer here that they've added to MW2 is the weapon platform system, which brings the ability to switch out the receiver for some weapons, turning it into a different weapon altogether. For instance, you can swap out the standard M4 receiver to the FSS Hurricane receiver that is similar to a P90, which then turns the weapon into more of a submachine gun. You can even use the 5.56 Icarus receiver to turn this M4 into an LMG, and so on. The other side of this new weapon platform mechanic is that most of the other attachments you unlock for a specific variant will remain unlocked for another variant of the same weapon platform. This means you can swap the receiver to change the type of weapon and still keep most of the same attachments you've already unlocked. I assume they'll continue to add more individual weapons as well as more weapon platforms over time through updates in future seasons. I wanted to highlight some of the modes they brought into this game. I had some of the most fun in the new Prisoner Rescue mode. In this mode, you only get one life, like in Search and Destroy, except here your teammates can revive you after you've been taken down. The goal here is to defend or rescue 2 hostages. The rescue team will have to pick up and carry the hostages back to the extraction zone, while the defending team simply has to eliminate the rescue team or defend hostages until the time limit expires. The person carrying a hostage is limited to using a pistol. One thing I love about this mode is the spectator camera. When you're down, you can spectate your teammates through what seems to be a helmet cam, which looks pretty cool. It seems this feature has been added to other modes that include spectating. During the beta, we got a chance to play a third-person mosh pit mode. This mode would cycle through the main game modes while giving everyone a third-person perspective when running around. When you aim down sights, however, your perspective does shift into first-person mode. While it was odd at first, I think it was pretty well implemented and it didn't feel as out of place as you might think it would. My friends and I had a good amount of fun playing this mode, and we agreed that playing a Warzone match like this could be fun. I got to try the Invasion mode as well, which is a larger scale mode more comparable to a Battlefield experience. I suppose this is essentially a new take on the ground war mode that was there previously. Here, your larger team is grouped into squads of 4 as you fight the enemy team. I found this game mode to be alright, but the Battlefield-esque experience just doesn't feel as good without the destructible environments. On top of that, there was plenty of AI thrown into this mode, which you may or may not enjoy as much depending on your preference. Realism mode from MW 2019 was a definite favorite for me, as I really prefer not having a minimap to guide the flow of gameplay by telling me where enemies are. I much prefer to immerse myself into the moment-to-moment gameplay by listening to and observing my surroundings more carefully so I can figure out where my enemies are at. Naturally, this also encourages more team cooperation in calling out enemy locations. The limited HUD and increased time to kill also heighten the intensity of the gameplay, which I love. This mode has notably been absent from the beta, but I really hope it becomes a regularly selectable mode in the final game. Before I wrap up here, what the hell is this? For whatever reason, sometimes your character's sleeves and fatigues will start to wave around as if you have a chopper right next to you, or as if you're in the middle of a wind tunnel. It seems to randomly happen but only shows as you move, no matter how slow or fast you're moving. It's a bit distracting, so I definitely hope they fix that. I've had plenty of fun so far with the game and I'm looking forward to the full release. I do recommend that you team up with some friends if you can, because these random lobbies can become so damn toxic to the point where it kinda shits on the fun. I mostly end up muting everyone because I just can't stand the shit talking.
God, those
Shut
guys
up,
are
pussy.
powerful.
Little hands.
Look at all their
Bitch
faces.
ass. Ooh, big boy.
I also can't stand people that have their mic or speakers so turned up that I can hear a constant echo of the game. Please do everyone a favor and double check your microphone settings. If you're not actively using the mic, you might just want to keep it on mute until you have something to say. On that note, I do often get a kick out of someone's audible reaction to me killing them.
Oh, what the f?
That's something I wish more games had. I enjoyed the third-person mode, and I hope to see more of that type of experimentation for future modes and maps as the game goes on. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever Warzone 2 has up its sleeve, as I'm sure I'll spend some time having fun with the typical Battle Royale mode, and perhaps any additional modes like Plunder if that comes back as well. Although I liked some elements of the Modern Warfare 2019 campaign, I found most of it to be fairly lackluster when compared to the original Modern Warfare campaigns. There was just so many dope set pieces and cinematic moments in those original games. I'm excited from what I've seen so far of the campaign we get this time around. They briefly teased something similar to the all gillied up mission from the original Modern Warfare, which was definitely one of the campaign's highlights, so I'm really stoked to see what that's all about. That wraps up my preview for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you checking out my video preview. Please let me know what you liked about this video, and if you'd be interested in a full-on review of this game, or any particular aspect of it later down the line. If there's another game or device you'd like me to check out and cover, be sure to let me know in the comments as well. If you haven't already seen my review of the Scuff Reflex PS5 Pro controller, I recommend checking out that review. Also keep an eye for my Veil VR preview that I'll be putting out soon after this one. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting that like button and sharing it with anyone you think would also like it. Check out the channel for other content if you're interested, and if you think you'd enjoy staying up to date with the content I'm putting out, be sure to subscribe. This is Ars Poetic, dropping the mic. Peace.